Okay, alrighty. Just start with the countdown in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Alrighty, this is Sylvan Tale for the Game Gear, released in early 95. So basically, this is a Japanese-only Game Gear game, and I'm playing on an actual Game Gear that's been modded for capture. Fancy that. So, basically, we're some guys, we're named Zets. The game doesn't really tell you, that name. But, basically we're hanging out in the grass in some field, and we start hearing a voice from the top of a tree, and we climb it to find a crest that tells us that we need to save the continent, which is, made of 3 different countries. This was like the start of a good year for the Game Gear in Japan. 1995, a lot of amazing games came out. But basically, this is like a Zelda-like game, inspired by Newtopia. But the key mechanic, or I guess gimmick of this game, is that you can transform into different animals to complete puzzles, but for most of the game you're either going to be Zets or a specific transformation that we'll see later. So just basically going through here, we were told to find a rock that looks like a face and enter the dungeon and clear the boss for our first task. So we just hit a couple switches here, and for whatever reason this rock looks like a face. So normally we're supposed to go to the left, but we're actually going to go right here. If we hold the grab button, didn't do that right, you're able to store your run animation for a little bit longer after getting hit. But sadly that did not happen. Ooh. Okay. Ooh, nice. I'll take that. That is awesome. It's so you can get item drops. Oops, wrong. Usually they're instant use items when you pick them up, but you can also get an apple that's a consumable that you can use whenever. I'm just going to use it there for safety. So in the first puzzle, we just got to push this block, and it turns off the lava or the fire floor that we just came across, and it also and also falling on top of that switch that turns off the fire spout that's normally here to get this crest. So you go ahead and equip that. But yeah, if you're digging the soundtrack, it's by Saori Kobayashi, who's known for the later Panzer Dragoon games such as Saga and Orta, and also has done some other music as well for Sega. I believe that she has her own thing nowadays that's not music related. But the nice thing about this game is you can save anywhere, so it's a very, very safe run. And I am playing on a fan translation, which is a couple minutes slower for the speed run, but it's for the fans. You gotta be able to see the game. So now we're fighting this dude, Fire Golem. I don't know if that's exactly his name. He's pretty simple. He just bounces around and then he shoots out fire in either a cross or an X pattern. And it's basically a very scripted fight. He'll always alternate cross and X. And the goal is just to keep hitting him. Sometimes you can reset his iframes if you hit him quickly enough and get an extra hit in. Like that. That's pretty solid. And you can even like finish him a cycle early. See, that guy just only had 1 hit left there. And if you are good enough on your iframes, you can get him a little bit quicker. So here we get the 100 slices technique, which is our main form of damage. You just mash your attack button, which is the 2 button on the Game Gear. Ooh, dang, 2 apples. I am really lucky tonight. But it does double damage as long as you're mashing your attack, and it's actually useful for a couple of puzzles like here. You gotta chop down some vines, because we need this lamp. The next area we're entering is a very dark cave, and the developers were smart enough to design the cave in a way that if you enter without the lamp, the layout's actually different, so you can't memorize it in advance by looking at it and seeing what it looks like, and then on a future playthrough coming back in. So you'd have to memorize the invisible layout. So the developers were very sneaky like that. But this is the 100% category, so we gotta do it anyways. We gotta get it anyways to fulfill the 100% requirement. But it's just about getting all permanent items, all transformations, all health upgrades. So first we're gonna go up here. This is gonna be the Turtle Altar, which is a mini dungeon where we get our first transformation. And with the lamp equipped, we can actually see a little bit instead of being just completely in dark. And yep, there are spikes. We can just jump over them, and it plays a little buzzing sound whenever we walk over them. It's like, hey, you're not supposed to do that. But we made it through just fine. We just had to hit all 3 switches. Definitely not Zelda, but inspired by Newtopia. So we're getting our first of 17 health upgrades, which is in the form of oranges. This game loves to use fruit. And oranges are very important because not only do they prevent scurvy, they're pretty tasty too. Let's see, so now I've got a little bit of randomness here. This little thing moves from tile to tile, and we just have to hit it 6 times as it pops up, and it'll open up the door where we want to go. So far, our luck's been pretty good. It can actually spawn instantly like that, or sometimes it can wait a while. I've seen it take up to 12 tiles. I'm sure it can go even more if your luck's bad. There we go. And then all we have to do is hit this right... Oop, a little too fast. Hit that upper right button. Doesn't matter if I hit the other buttons. So unfortunately I took some extra damage, but that's fine. Health's not too much of a concern with that apple I found. But ideally I want to hold on to the apples for as long as I can. So just avoid the enemies. And so hitting that switch opens up the path up here, which is normally blocked off by a force field. And here we get our first transformation, the turtle. The turtle is not particularly useful for movement, but it is required to solve some puzzles. Because the turtle moves super duper slow and you can't tap with it, you can't really do a whole lot with it, but it is required just to fulfill conditions for beating puzzles. I am going through a Frame Meister, actually. But yes, this is an RGB captured Game Gear. Get our second orange, probably the last time I'll be keeping count of it. Yeah, I've had one since 2013. Ooh, cherries, I'll take those. But yeah, the Game Gear was mostly notorious for its poor battery life and blurry screen, but it had a really solid library of games once you got past the crap. Like, there is a lot of crap on the Game Gear, but some of that crap's pretty good. So now we're finally using the turtle's main purpose, which is to go up these fire jets. The turtle is immune to fire, and with that we can propel ourselves up here. Once you got past Surf Ninjas, hey, Surf Ninjas is a classic. But nowadays there's mods to replace the screen if you really want to play on an actual Game Gear, though I'm not a huge fan of the D-pad, so I do have a controller mod to use a Genesis controller, which is much more comfortable for me. Oop. So you can avoid that, sometimes it's just hard. So we want to hit those switches on the left or the right, and then just want to kind of stay in the middle. That way you can hit these switches as we go up and try to avoid those spikes, or discs. Shining Force 3 is an amazing game. Alright, only got hit that one time, that's fine. And that switch on the left there is a trap, so we're avoiding that. And so now we get the first challenging boss of the game. It's only challenging because of how much damage it does for how little health you have. And basically you have to hit those blobs. There's 4 of them every time, and then it goes into this phase. And just down here to the side, you can avoid taking damage from her attacks. The blobs do a lot of damage, and they move at a very random... They have a very random movement pattern. Like, there's no... there's like no pattern to it, it's just completely randomly generated. There's... Just have to hope and pray that you'll never, get hit. There we go. Nice. And so it's just a quick, easy 3 phases. So Anne has been defeated, but it's not the last we'll see of her. So now we got the Rift Key, which means we can travel to the next country, which is the Flower Country. And basically in Japanese it's like Hana no Kuni, which just literally means Flower Country, and the fan translation chose to call it Flora, which is, you know, a nice stylized name. And this is actually a fairly old translation. I believe it was started in 1999 and finished in like 2000, 2001. And for how old the translation is, it's really well done. And, oh, I totally forgot about the story of that little town. So basically the story is that monsters have been kidnapping adults of the town, leaving the children to fend for themselves. So by defeating by defeating Anne, the monsters have stopped attacking, but the adults are still missing, but the kids can live safely now. I believe it, Palmer. Oh, I took damage there. There we go. It's rare I don't make that cycle, but it does happen. So now we're getting another transformation rather unceremoniously, the mold transformation, which does have a few uses. It can break soft rocks, and eventually it'll get a new ability to dig into soft ground. But for now, we needed to get another transformation unceremoniously as well. But after that, the other transformations tend to be a little bit more like you have to put some work into getting them. There we go. Soft locks. The soft rocks are soft locks, basically. So now we have the Merman transformation, which allows us to swim in water, which is very handy. It's the only transformation you don't have to transform to, but you can anyways. And you just kind of, like, gasp for air. And one thing I love about this game is the water. It's just, they do such an amazing job with the palette shifting. I imagine if the Game Gear had done better at that point in time when this game came out in the West, because by the time this game came out, the Game Gear was already pretty dead in the water in the West. Ooh, that's rare. It's unusual for that crab to be in the way. Usually it's much lower. But so in this dungeon, there's these jellyfish things that shoot attacks that trace you. Whoops. There we go. So now we can use the mold to open up the pathway there. And then we just need to pull this rock over there. Yeah, I loved my Game Gear as a kid, though the only game I had was Sonic 1. I didn't really explore the library until a few years ago when I got a Game Gear modded for playing on TV. Oh, I did not pull that quick enough. I'll take the hit. There we go, I didn't pull it all the way. Alright, health's a little low, but that's fine. I have an apple if I need it. So I need to pull this off, but it'll save just a couple seconds later when we come back in here, because it'll just cause the rock to respawn in the middle of the room. Okay, let's kill this dude. Alright, that's what I was hoping for. Technically, I didn't have to kill that one because it wasn't in the way, but better safe than sorry, because sometimes it can just decide to dart in a direction and deal massive damage. Man, that is so weird. I'm getting hit by those when I usually don't. Oh well. Okay, kill that. Snazzy yellow, nice. I have a powder blue one that I'm planning to get modded at some point. Just to have a second one. Because my powder blue one is Japanese, and there's some games that change depending on the... Ooh. on the region of your Game Gear, which is like kind of silly. Okay, so this dude, he just moves around, and when he's in that eyeball form, you can hit him. When he's in this clam with teeth form, you have to deal with his attack. And he's also pretty random, so like I try to stay close by because you don't get a lot of time to hit him. But at the same time, staying close is risky. Like that. Like, you can't tell if he's just going to keep going or stop. And you don't get a whole lot of time to respond to him being vulnerable. Probably. The problem with Game Gears is that they have notoriously bad capacitors, which renders them generally unusable until you replace it. Ooh, this guy's being a jerk. There we go. So now we're in phase 3, or phase 2, I guess. No, I guess phase 3, because phase 1, he doesn't actually attack you. There we go. And phase 2 is when he starts attacking, and then phase 3 here. So, right now the story is that we're collecting these droplets. There's a total of 6 of them to restore the water prism. There's 3 prisms that we're seeking out, but the big bad guy Moa has 2 of them already. But the 3rd one was shattered into 6 droplets by Princess Rui to prevent Moa from having all 3, which I guess gives him power or something. Either way, we learned a new ability for our turtle, which lets us break hard rock like that by dashing into stuff. But it's still a pretty slow way to move around. So now we're going to do some item collection. There's a couple of oranges. There's an orange to get, as well as a flower and some comb, and a comb. It's a Triforce, but isn't. Something like that. Instead of feelings, it's elements. It's water, wind, and light. And Moa has the wind and light prisms. So now we're gonna see that this crack is here. Break it open and undam the water. And luckily, we just immediately turned back into the mermaid. Nice. So here we're gonna find another orange. Oh, I was already human. Thinking too far ahead in the run. So now that the water's back, the flowers have miraculously started growing again. And they're magic flowers too, as the girl will tell us. Basically, they restore people's spirit. Or I guess restores their hope. So I need to equip them, because we're going to be using them on a couple of people. First, I want to talk to this guy, who's unrelated to the flowers we have equipped. But as thanks for undamming the river, he's going to let us take the compass, which we'll need for the next labyrinth. There we go. But yeah, this game was really designed with the Game Gear's battery life in mind, because the battery life on the Game Gear was pretty bad. You could get maybe 3 to 5 hours if you were lucky. And the dungeons in this game are pretty short, and you can save anywhere, so if your battery's running low, you're safe. So this dude's in the cave. He was kidnapped by monsters from that first town we were in, and he can't get out, but we give him some flowers to restore his hope. Or show him the flowers to restore his hope, and he says, just take this comb to my sister, let her know I'm alive. So we'll be doing that later. Just basically basically the only side quest in the game. Ooh. And that just helps satisfy the 100% requirement. So now we're going to be talking to this little kid up here who's sad that the flowers are gone. But we're going to show him that the flowers are okay. And he's gonna do something we can't do, which is chop down some trees. Sometimes, so for some reason, even though we have a sword, we can't hack down the trees. But this little kid, he can. He doesn't have a sword. So normally this way is blocked off. There's no way past it, but he opens up the path for us and gives us probably our most useful transformation, which is the mouse. The mouse runs a lot faster than the human form, and we don't have to double tap to run. But as a catch, the mouse's damage is pretty weak. Child had an axe to grind. So now we can move really, really fast. And the mouse is required for the next labyrinth. There are, like, basically the mouse's special ability is that it can fit into small spaces. Yeah, but we have a magic sword. The mouse can fit in small places and also walk on fragile tiles. So the compass is required for this dungeon. The pathway is always the same, but it's a force of confusion, and the pathway doesn't work unless you have the compass pointing you in the direction. So even if you know the route, you can't complete it without the compass. So now here we have Garcia. For some reason he wants our sword. Ooh, I wouldn't mash fast enough. Okay, there we go. So all we do is hit him twice, but if you mash fast enough, you can get him before he hits you, but he doesn't do any damage. He's just like hitting you with a stick of bread. Change back to the mouse. And now we're in the meat of the labyrinth. There's an orange over here we'll be getting. Yeah, give me the seed. I know, it's such a strange thing to say, but that's the name of your weapon, is the seed. And it's not really explained why. Maybe in the manual it is, but I don't know enough Japanese, and it's also really hard to read because the text is really, really small. So we're gonna hit that switch. Basically, this dungeon is set up in that the different combinations of switches opened up different paths, and we need to hit 3 of those purple orbs with the different combinations of switches to open up the pathway to the boss. And here, Garcia, he fell prey to the trap. So we're gonna help him out, despite him trying to take our sword. And he's like, "Oh, you'll never figure out this puzzle," but it's a pretty simple puzzle. Change back to the mouse. That one. And another switch. And now we need to hit both of those switches to get the final one. And this is the one where you need the mouse, because these tiles are very brittle. Oh, there we go. And I'm not too worried about health, because the boss has a really, really cool quick kill that we're gonna definitely do. We're not gonna try to do, we're definitely gonna do it. So we're gonna save before we enter, and we're gonna realign our subpixels here, because we can't do this unless we do that. Normally, this magic pixel that we're gonna stand on, there we go. We're in the right spot. So we're standing on a very magic pixel spot where the boss can't hurt us, and we can do all the damage we want. And this boss is actually very, very challenging. That shield normally follows you around, and you have to kind of like time your hits, because it also has like a flamethrower that shoots out at you. It's a dangerous boss. Like the cheese way to do it is to use the turtle and constantly dash into it, but we can just do that instead. Let's see. Now we want to equip the rift key. Change the mouse. So now we're gonna do some backtracking. Go. So we have to backtrack, get some items we missed in the first area that we couldn't get previously, just because we didn't have the abilities or other items for it. But the nice thing about this game is it makes it really easy to go back and forth as necessary. And with the way the game is designed, we have to come back twice, just because of how the story progression is. So we're gonna stay as the human for a little bit, because we need to talk to NPCs. This game is designed in such a way that you can only talk to things that are the same species as you. So if you try to talk to a human as an animal, you'll just get gibberish. And the same thing with like animals talking to animals, though the only animals you can talk to are mice and moles. So we're gonna ruin this kid's day. Lets us try out their Takitombo that they learned how to make in a book. And we're just gonna toss it off into the forest, but it's such a powerful Takitombo that opens up a path to talk to this old dude, who gives us some backstory on the land. And talk about Queen Rui, who's currently being held hostage by Moa, the big evil guy. But he gives us some life powder, which is basically a miracle grow item right now. Yeah, the text is kind of slow on the translation patch, but it's designed for Japanese text. So now we can get oranges from dead trees, just more health up. Let's see, equip the comb. So now we're going to talk to that dude's sister, who gave us the comb, and she'll give us an item called grapes. Yeah, basically what they do is you have them equipped, and you die with them equipped, you'll get a full health restoration. But honestly, this is the text scrolling pretty fast. If you hold the 2 button and mash the 1 button, you can scroll by pretty fast. Let's see, you can go to mouse, equip the rift key. So we're not quite done yet. We need, there's 1 orange and 1 more item we're getting. Here we go. But yeah, this is a really old fan translation from like 1999, 2000-ish. I don't need that. So in the next coming era, they're making a new ability we just learned from the last boss we did. Ooh, pineapples are nice. They're full health refills, but you can't hold on to them. So we learned how to dig with the mole, and conveniently there's some soft ground here. And surprisingly, despite how kind of hard it is to see, it actually is visible on a Game Gear's screen. Whoops, don't need to transform yet. Don't know. No one's done an 80% run, because 80% is really, really dang hard. It's basically a damageless run. So now we're just going to go through some secret tunnels. There's a secret item here that's not required to beat the game, but it is required for 100% completion. Let's see. Nope. Oh, well, I avoided taking damage from that dude. But I was hoping to take damage on the same frame I grabbed the orange, because there's a little glitch you can get where you can move while the text box is going. And it also skips that text box. But, so what we got there was the floating stone, which is a secret item. Like, you really have to go out of your way to find it and just kind of get lucky. Like, if you decide to backtrack and look around, or maybe you see that, that soft patch of ground before and remember to come back later, you might find it. But yeah, 80% run. Basically, a true 80% run would be very, very difficult, because by the end of the game, bosses will be able to one-shot you, and makes it very, very challenging to do that when it's pretty easy for bosses to take cheap shots at you. So, now we're on to the typical desert you'll see in RPGs, because it's not an RPG unless there's a desert. Alright, there we go. Made the cycle. What are my thoughts? My thoughts is I'm excited as heck. I'm running this game at limit break. Sadly there is no snow region. Get a desert instead. But yes, I will be running this at RPG Limit Break in person this May. I am very excited. Originally, this game was accepted back in 2017, but it was dropped because the runner was unable to attend the event, so I'm very excited that they decided to let it in again. So here, getting another orange. Let's see, while that's doing that, I need to equip the float stone. Heck yeah! So, this floating stone, if you're playing this casual, you might, if you find the float stone, you might wonder what it's for. There's no indication of what it is, or what you do with it. You can try it everywhere, but you'll never figure it out, really. But basically, if you have the float stone equipped, and you see these 4 pillars there, this this little castle appears. And this castle has a secret transformation that's the bird transformation. It's actually pretty useful, but it is definitely a secret transformation. It's not listed anywhere in the manual. It's not required to beat the game with it. It's just more of a convenience transformation than anything, because it lets you fly over obstacles and enemies. But you move about as fast as you would as a human. But it's actually pretty useful in the speedrun, because it does let us skip some puzzles and make others easier. But that's all you'll see of it for a while. So now we're going to be doing some transformation cycling for a bit. You have to change the mole to dig. Then we have to change back to the human to be able to attack. Oh, the mole can attack too, but doesn't do much damage. And we also need to be the human to push blocks, because the human's the only one with opposable thumbs. Despite holding a sword with the mouse, we can't push blocks because we don't have any weight. There we go. Alright. So the only downside about transforming a lot is that the music loop resets every time you open up the menu. And then it's just how it is. Let's see, transform again. Alright, now we can be the mouse for just a little bit. Get another orange that's sneakily hidden up here. Go up here. Alright, now no transformations for a little bit. We can stay as the mouse. We need to get this hourglass item, which is technically required for the next dungeon, but with the bird transformation, it makes the hourglass unnecessary. Oop, there we go. Ooh, dang, that took a chunk of health. I don't mind it, but I know that some people don't like having to constantly go to the menu. But yeah, it's just working with what they had. They only have 2 buttons and a two face buttons and a start button for the Game Gear. Let's see. I'm not too worried about health as long as I don't take too much. Because the next boss that we'll be fighting also has a quick kill. But at least for this game, the menu is very, very responsive. There's very little lag in the menus. Let's see, I need to equip the purifying, or the life powder, and change the mouse. So, for once, we actually have to be the mouse. We need to upgrade our life powder to the purifying powder, which will be required to get to the dungeon after the next, because we're thinking far ahead. And the only person who can upgrade our life powder is a mouse, conveniently enough. And normally they're expecting you to use the lamp to navigate this dungeon, but this dungeon is really easy to navigate in the dark. There's nothing that can hurt you, and if you know where to go, you can just kind of like maneuver your thumb around the D-pad. So down a little bit, then over to the right, then up, and then just kind of rock my thumb left and right until I could transition back into the light. So here, supposed to use the hourglass to slow down the wall of sand here, or whatever it is, but we can just fly over it with the bird, because the bird is just OP like that. And you'll see in a little while how even more OP the bird actually is. That is dangerously close. Okay, good, didn't move. Alrighty. Now we need to change back into Zets to push this big heavy rock, and we're actually pushing it up a slope, surprisingly, because once we stop pushing it, it starts falling back down. Alrighty. So now we just gotta hit a switch over here, which will allow us to hit another switch. And it'll basically give us the crest to enter the boss room for this dungeon. And I believe this is the last dungeon that has a crest. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, avoid the jellyfish. Then we'll just kind of maneuver around this one to bait out its attack. Then change to the mole. Back into the mouse, because the mouse is the only thing that can fit through that hole. At the crest. Equip that. Alright. Now this next boss also has a quick kill strategy, although it's not as fancy as the last one. It's still pretty important. So you go ahead and save. Because this boss can wreck you, at least in Phase 2 it can. Phase 1 and 3 aren't so bad, but Phase 2 is pretty mean. Okay, move over here. Alright. Then we can just stand up here. Alrighty, easy peasy. Now the mouse has the magnet power, which is actually one of my favorite powers. It's really cool. So I need to equip the purifying powder because we're going to be needing that to enter the next dungeon. There we go. So with the magnet power, we can pull ourselves across gaps if there's a magnetized rock on the other side. And conveniently, this dungeon has those. But the water is also poisoned. So we need the purifying power to cleanse the water. There we go. If you enter the water without cleansing it, your health drains super quickly, and if you don't get out quick enough, you will die. Alrighty. Here we go. Sometimes that water strider is in the way, although it hasn't been lately, thankfully. Go, save. And then here we have a really trolly dungeon. There's only 4 rooms, it's arranged in a square. And you can just keep going around in a circle until you rub up against a wall and find the secret path. It's not a very smartly designed dungeon, I think, but this boss is interesting. Basically, in the first phase, he'll teleport around, he'll shoot fire, and then you hit him when he's done spinning. And then in Phase 2, he teleports around. After every 3 teleports, he'll spawn in the middle and do an attack. So I just stay on this side and try to maximize the number of things I can hit. And we just want to hit the one with the eye on it. And then after every 3 teleports, stand in the middle, avoid his attack. Yep, unlucky, he's on that side. Again. There we go. So yeah, just stand in the middle, you can avoid his attack. Alright, so far I'm getting pretty good on the hits that I actually am able to hit him, because you don't really get a whole lot of time to attack him. So that's pretty solid. Alright, very nice fight. So now the merman can dive deep underwater, which is very handy for entering the next dungeon, which makes a highlight of the mouse's magnet ability, but for the most part we'll be skipping the puzzles in that dungeon. Because while this run is mostly glitchless, there is an actual out of bounds that we'll be doing. Let's see, change the mouse, because we want to go really fast. So we'll be doing some out of bounds stuff in the next dungeon to skip the puzzles. And as of right now, it's the only... Wow, that's mean. That's rare that that turtle is like blocking the entire path. So we go over here in the water, and you'll notice that there's a dark spot here that's basically a place where you can enter deep water. And we can actually swim underwater. Oop. Oh, you can only hit it from the side. Oh, there we go. Now go up here. Change to the mouse. Pull that over. So now we're doing some like basically push and pull puzzles with the magnet ability. And there's a few of them, and they're actually pretty interesting puzzles. But there's also these tile puzzles, which I'm not a big fan of. I know like a Link Link's Awakening does them, I believe. I believe it's Link's Awakening. And I'm not a huge fan of them, but once you know the solution, they're not so bad. Let's see, there we go. So what the game expects you to do is to pull this ball onto that switch there, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do something more fun. How many Game Gear RPGs are there? A lot. I don't know specifically, but there are a lot. So we're going to pull that into us, and now we're in an out-of-bounds state, but we can only move out of bounds with the turtle. That's basically where the turtle like really shines, is moving out of bounds. Because basically what the game does is it tries to push you back in bounds based on your movement speed, and the turtle has a slow enough movement speed that you cannot be pushed back in bounds by the game alone. But out of bounds has some caveats. You can only move diagonally, and you move in the opposite direction you press. So it can be a little confusing at first until you get used to it. But like some Game Gear RPGs of note, Lunar Walking School, there's the Phantasy Star Gaiden game, there's 2 Shining Force games, there's also this game, of course. And we're going to be doing the Out of Bounds once more, because we had to do it the first time to get the orange. Ooh, that was fast. Yes, Crystal Warriors, there's also Defenders of Oasis. So this one introduces the wall panels shooting stuff at you, but with the bird transformation, we can just hover over them and not take damage. And conveniently, the panels are motion sensors, so you don't have to worry about actually touching them. So we're going to do Out of Bounds once more here, but we do have to pull that into place. One of them did. Shining Force Gaiden 2 made it, I believe. Come on. Come on, there we go. The mouse is kind of twitchy, so it's hard to pull that into place. So then pull that back into us. And then just last Out of Bounds, change to the bird once more, because there's one more tile puzzle. Alright, and so in order to fly, you have to mash the attack button, so I'm doing that while moving, and it can get a little challenging. So this is the final puzzle of the dungeon, but we're just going to skip it by sacrificing some of our health. I'm going to go ahead and make a safety save, and just go straight to the boss. So here's supposedly Princess Rui, and the first time we get called Zetz. But it's actually Gol, who is masquerading as Rui, to trap us here and try to get the droplets that we collected from us. Let's see, hopefully I'm in a good position for the Phase 1 quick kill. Nope. So it's possible to kill his Phase 1 before they get an attack off. And then Phase 2, just jumping around, just gotta avoid the damage. Do I have an item? No, okay. Hope I don't take damage then. Okay, there we go. That was a bit scary. And it turns out Gol is actually just a tiny little spider. But they reveal that they have Princess Rui, and only she knows where the final droplet is, but she's not telling. And so now we have the next rift key to go to the final country, but we're not ready to do that yet. We got some backtracking to do first. Because what's 100% run without backtracking, you know? Alright. Oh yeah, Game Gear RPGs. There's also one called Moldorian that I've been wanting to check out, but it does not work on my Game Gear EverDrive. You can play the game, but you can't save. There's a new Game Gear EverDrive that was released recently, and I'm hoping that it fixes the save issue with that game. Because that game, and I believe also Phantasy Star Gaiden, also don't save properly on the old EverDrive. Has more soundtracks. Ah, it's impossible not to backtrack. Also, I'm not... Did I grab that orange? That's a good question. Oh well, I'll make a point to check on my way back. It'll waste a little time, but it's better than being unsure if I satisfy 100%. So basically, if you were paying attention early on in the game when we first came here, there was a magnetized orb and a chest across from a gap that we could not cross. And if you remember to come back, you'll be rewarded with an orange and also Pandora's box, which, when open, reduces the damage taken by half. And it's really, really useful. And the game, I'm pretty sure, is balanced around opening it, because the late game bosses do a ridiculous amount of damage without it open. Oop, wasn't close enough. But it requires you to have a good memory to remember that you saw something here. Ow. Luckily, health's not too much of a problem right now. Okay, change the mole. And back to the mouse. So the unique thing about Pandora's box is you can actually close it and return your damage taken value back to normal. But why would anyone want to do that? Because you have to go all the way back here and just to do all that, and it doesn't seem worth it. But you can. And there's a theory that developers had originally intended a way to easily return to this point, because there's a door in the town that doesn't open, doesn't do anything, it's just there. But basically the theory is that originally that door was supposed to open when you originally accessed Pandora's box, because there is a door trigger inside the Pandora's box room, but it's not activated, and it's also out of bounds. So I am going to do a little a detour that I wouldn't normally do in a run, because I'm not sure if I collected an orange. And I want to make sure that I can satisfy the 100%. Like, I'm fairly certain I grabbed it, but I'd rather be sure than not sure. Okay, I did grab it. Yeah. There's nothing attached to it. It's just like a remnant from Develop. Okay. Oh crap. I messed up there. I was supposed to change my rift key. So the way the game works is that if you're in the first area, you can only use the Berta rift key. You can't use the new rift key we got. The Flora rift key. Okay, so now we're in the final area, which has one of my favorite tracks in the game. And now we're in Sylvan, which is forest country in Japanese. But sadly we don't get to hear that track for very too long, but I like it a lot. This one's a good track too. So we're gonna go to the side here, collect another orange. But basically the theory with the Pandora room is that in the Pandora room there is a door to trigger there that's like out of bounds. Let's see. Oh yeah, I can change to the mouse now. Alright. So go through here. Sneak our way past all these snakes. The Game Gear had many RPGs, my friend. Many, many RPGs. Just a lot of them didn't make it west. But there's a few that did, like Dragon Crystal and Defenders of Oasis and Shining Force. So now here we find two women over a gravestone. It turns out that we were too late, and Princess Rui has been killed by Moa and his henchmen. But they were told that if we were to show up to give us this amulet, to be able to enter the final boss's, the second to the last boss's room. Oop, there we go. No, not at all. The Game Gear / Master System have a very unique sound, and that's what I love about the system. The difference between the two is that the Game Gear has about 4,100 colors to choose from. So basically it just makes the Game Gear a souped up Master System. Let's see, and one more chest orange. Because the Game Gear can play Master System games, there was an official adapter made, and if you have like a Game Gear EverDrive, you can play Master System games that way as well. I'm gonna go up here, take some damage, because we're gonna be taking an intentional death, basically it's just story related. Change to Zets. So now we fight this big old wall skull dude, but his skull is so strong that it broke our sword in half. So we're just gonna bash our head into him, hope for that best. Does the Game Gear support FM? I am not sure. So our boy Garcia comes in and saves us, even though he tried to kill us. And here we have a near-death experience with Princess Rui, who tells us this the story so far with with Moa. Yeah, I know what you mean, Murdoch. I'm not entirely sure because there's no EverDrive that supports the FM chip. Because the Game Gear itself does not have the FM chip inside it, if that's what you mean. So in our near-death experience, Princess Rui tells us where the final droplet is. It's a piece of information she held to her dying breath. But now, we're pretty defenseless. We're just an average human again. We have no weapon. Without a weapon, we can't transform. But we do have the most powerful ability of all, which is block pushing. Because you can do anything if you can push some blocks. And technically, we don't have to talk to her, but if you talk to her twice, she refills your health completely, which is a lot safer than being near dead. So push that, opens up a hidden path down here. Avoid the snake, avoid the slime. And push that. Basically, we're opening up a path here to get the last treat orange. I'm gonna push that block back into place, make things nice and tidy. Because technically we don't have to go this way, but in order to get the final orange we do, because this is the only way you can access this upper path. Alright, equip the purifying powder one last time. And then need to equip the amulet again, because it's required to open the path to the final dungeon. And conveniently enough, this dungeon does not have a name. So, just call it the final dungeon. There we go. And bam. So while we can't attack, we can, what's the word I'm looking for? Run through fire still. So normally the game expects you to push a rock all the way down there to turn off the fire, but we can just damage boost our way through it. We're going to do that once more. Bam, there we go. Because we can walk on fire like that. And here the final droplet is found, and we have restored our weapon, and we get all our health back. And we also restored the water prism. So change the mouse, because the mouse can damage boost through fire a lot more quickly. See, only like 2 hits instead of 4 or 5. Change to the turtle to go up this. Alright. I'm gonna jump down here. And then change to Zets. There we go. And now we have satisfied the 100% requirement of getting all the oranges. We are now immune to scurvy for the rest of our days. Because that's how it works, right? You eat 17 oranges and you'll no longer get scurvy. Okay, now we're going to be doing a mechanic that the game never ever teaches you but expects you to do. I am very orange. So what you have to do is you have to jump down here and as the turtle, and it breaks the floor there. But the game never indicates that the turtle can do that, nor is it even obvious. How many real oranges were prepared to, for this consumed for this run? 3. Okay. So basically, it's just a refight from goal from earlier, except now there's this little spider out there that you can actually attack, but it just respawns. And also, it has a bend in its attack. So now in phase 2, after every 3 hits, it turns into a bunch of tiny spiders, and we just have to dodge and wait it out. It is possible to skip one of these phases, but it's I've yet to see it happen. But OmniGamer says it's happened to him once. Because if you hit him, if you manage to hit him a 4th time before he transforms, it'll skip that phase. It'll skip that phase where he transforms and just lets you pound on him again. And I've actually had this boss softlock where it spawned out of bounds as well. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now we have regained the light prism, and convenient enough it restores all our health. So we're gonna stay as human for a bit because we got some block pushing. This is indeed the Game Gear. So here we're gonna run into another bit of the game being kind of mean to you. Here they expect you to push this rock for a little bit because it looks like a rock you normally push, but you can't. But if you push on it long enough, Garcia shows up, and with the power of friendly rivalry, he shows up and helps you push it. See, and now we're going into my least favorite fight of the game. If you remember fighting Anne from way in the beginning, we're fighting her again the exact same way. Nothing's changed, except now it's 7 phases of doing this instead of 3. Oop. Come on. There we go. And instead of attacking her from the side, you attack her from the front and just poke her in the eye. Yeah, I can imagine a lot of people's casual plays ended there, because you kind of have to look up what to do. Like, I know I had to on my first playthrough. So basically, just for 7 phases of doing that. There we go. So I'm just trying to be a little cautious because since this is such a long fight, it's really easy to take damage. I think that was 3. I don't know. I wasn't counting. There we go. Come on. There we go. Oh yeah, they pulled out all the stops on this game. But it feels very rushed near the end. Like, they had more planned, but they were coming up on their time limit for development. Come on. That's the trouble with these things being as erratic as they are. Come on. There we go. Bad screen. No, the bad battery life can be fixed by replacing the backlight, because the backlight in an original Game Gear is a tiny fluorescent tube, which drains power like crazy. Like, and if you replace the backlight, you can get about 20 to 25 hours out of the battery, which is still not great for 6 AA's, but it's a lot better than 3 to 5 hours. But yeah, I'm actually running this on an actual Game Gear as we speak. I have a video out mod, I'm running it through an upscaler. Exactly. Okay, so we got the final prism. And now we can finally take on Moa and his skeleton wall thing. By getting the final prism, we learned the charged attack ability, which does the same damage as our 100 slashes, but it deals special damage. So that bosses that you normally couldn't damage, we can damage now. They did. They definitely did. All they were rechargeable batteries inside a pack that you could replace on your own. Yeah, they were nickel cadmium. Come on, there we go. Okay, so change here. Make a safety save. And this room is very laggy. So it's if you get a running start quick enough, you can break that skull off before his first attack, and you can reveal his real face, which is pretty nasty. Nice. But yeah, I have mine just plugged into the wall since this Game Gear is basically consoleized. Okay. So we're killing these two dudes just to save on health, because they're pretty hard to get around with their position. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a save. And I'm gonna equip the grapes for safety. If you remember earlier, basically they revive you if you die if you have them equipped. And here we finally confront Moa himself. He's a pretty unique fight. He has 3 phases, though they're mostly the same throughout in how you deal with them. The first phase is definitely the toughest, because he just comes right at you swinging. So he just dodges attacks, it's always the same. Then he'll spawn in a random location where we hit him once and then we need to do a charge attack on him. And it's possible to get up to 3 attacks per phase, but you have to be really tight on your movement. Nope, didn't get that. So averaging, like, just doing 2 is fine, but 3 is of course better. And now he's doing the Starfield attack. It's generally pretty easy to avoid. Just stand near the bottom. More often than not, it won't go that low, but it can. Ah, dang. Missed that hit. Yep, got hit there. Okay, there we go. Nice, got a 3rd hit in. So now we're in the final phase. Time will be coming up very soon. Okay. I think it's safe, so I can try not to use my grapes. And that is time. Very nice. I will surely rise again someday, for sure. And just like that, Moa's down. Thanks for the GGs, y'all. And with that, the ghost of Princess Rui comes and congratulates us for saving the continent of Sylvan. And even gives the hint that she's actually your mom. Because that's totally how Japanese RPG stories are. The plot twist at the end where you find out she's actually your mom. Well, thanks so much for having me, Palmer. It's so wonderful to always show off this game. Mega Man shout out. Fun fact, there is a Mega Man game for the Game Gear ported to the Game Gear by US Gold, and it's basically a mix of Mega Man 4, 5, and 6 stages, I believe? Or 3, 4, and 5 stages, maybe. Or no, it's just a mix of stages from Mega Man's 1 to 5. Yes, you're gonna find out in the credits that your mom worked on this game. But if you want a bad portable Mega Man experience, I highly recommend Mega Man on the Game Gear. It's not a bad game by any means, but it has issues. Yeah, I mean, how many people know about the Game Gear library, let alone Japanese-only Game Gear RPGs? On handhelds for 2000, not counting Game Boy. Game Gear Mega Man does exist.